Hi everyone, and welcome. My name is Dale, and this is the third video in a series of videos dedicated to helping those who are interested in theatrical design or technical theater get into college programs, get internships, and get jobs. In the last two videos, we talked about the basics of the design tech portfolio. We talked about some tips and tricks for putting the portfolio together. And in this video, I'm going to talk about presenting the portfolio. This is something I think people don't give enough credit to. And as somebody who sits through a lot of portfolio presentations, I always appreciate when somebody has given thought to how they're going to present the portfolio and the materials within it. Many people don't think past the construction phase of the portfolio and what they're going to include, and I think that can be a real detriment to the portfolio as a whole. So today we're going to talk about some pointers that I have in regards to presenting your portfolio to someone who you are either interested in pursuing with a collegiate program or trying to get a job through. So let's get right into it and let's talk about presenting the design tech portfolio. It is entirely possible that your portfolio is going to cover material for multiple years, and that if you haven't worked on a production in a while or hadn't built that prop or costume piece in a while, you're not really going to remember all the components that you probably need to in order to accurately present that material in your portfolio. So do some research. Look up the show, look up the basics, the character names, the basic locations, the names of the songs that are referenced in the imagery or the paperwork that you're representing. If it's an item that you created, look up the materials, the names of the materials that you have used in order to create that, or the specific method that you use to make it, if it has a specific name or term. There's no harm in doing that kind of research. So legitimately, the last thing you want is for somebody who is looking at your portfolio and is familiar with the show or the methodology that you used to tell you what it is. What that does is it lets people know that you haven't taken the time or attention to familiarize yourself with the material that's in your portfolio. You should be the most knowledgeable person in the room about the content that's within your portfolio. Not just the moments, but the entire production or the entire methodology that you're going to talk about. So if you can't remember off the top of your head, research. Do not expect that you're going to remember it in the moment. Chances are you're not going to, and it's not going to feel great. So just do the work on the front end and be prepared when you walk into the room to talk about any aspect of the production or the process of creating something that you might have represented in your portfolio. When you're presenting your portfolio, the first thing you want to do when you're approaching any new project or any new production in the portfolio is to introduce it. Introduce yourself, what your role was, what the show was or what the project was, and where it took place. That kind of thing is the most important feature. When someone turns a page in a portfolio and starts talking about the content, I need reference as to, was this a show that you were a designer on? Were you a technician on the show? Did you come up with the material? Was it provided for you? Was this a production? Was this a class project? I need that information provided to me. So it's always good whenever you get to a new section of your portfolio to present that material. It's important for context, it's important for clarity, and there's absolutely no reason not to. It's also kind of helpful to reiterate for the people that are looking at your portfolio what it is you do or would like to do. By saying that over and over again, you're giving clarification to those people. So do not neglect the introductions. Don't ever feel like you're doing too much. You're probably not doing enough. Think about your portfolio as your journey through your theatrical experience. You're starting with the main points and then you're filling in details as you move through the portfolio. We talked in the last video about starting with your best foot forward and then progressing through with supporting shows or projects that will help to kind of guide the person looking at your portfolio through what your experiences are and what your skill set is. Your dialogue with those people should do exactly the same thing. So think about how you want to describe or explain the elements of your portfolio, and make sure that you're not using the same descriptions or the same explanations at every show that you work on. It's going to start to feel repetitive, and it's going to feel like maybe you are only capable of doing one thing. So if you're going to talk about the complexity of a specific costume build in one particular show, in the next show you talk about, you want to make sure that you're not talking about the same complexity of costume build. Find something else challenging within that production, or something else that's going to help kind of fill in your skill set with that. It's also helpful to kind of find a blanket statement that you can start off your production with. Give some context for the production, give some context for your approach to the production, and then kind of allow the work within the portfolio to speak for itself. For example, this is a production of The Seagull presented at the University of Virginia, where I served as the lighting designer. The director for this production wanted it to be very presentational, which meant that we would use a lot of signage, that the actors would always be visible throughout the production, that moments would be a little bit more heightened and non-realistic, and that we would see the elements of the design, including the lighting equipment and the sound equipment. So one of the interesting things that she wanted to do with this production was to create these vignettes where the audience would kind of see a snapshot of what was going to happen within the course of the act of this of the show. Seagull is set in 4 acts. So each act had a separate feeling or emotional context to it. And the actors were in this presentational setup where you would get a sense of their relationships to each other, the environment that the production was going to take place in during that act, and get a sense of how the audience is going to feel as they move into that act. This gave me a lot of freedom in regards to the use of color, the use of directionality, and it was a really fun part of the process that I really embraced. A short speech like that gives the people looking at your portfolio context for what they're seeing in the images that you're presenting, in the research, in the finalized production, in the process photos, in the paperwork. And it gives me, as the designer, an opportunity to talk about and highlight some of the parts of the show that were unique to that production, where I had an opportunity to do something that was a little bit beyond what I would normally do for a standard production. So using that opportunity is really important, and finding those opportunities within each show can really show that you're giving a lot of thought to that production and what was the key element there, or what was the main point that you focused on with a specific production. It's also a really good opportunity to highlight challenges that you might have had over the course of the production. So let's say you're working on a particular scenic piece, and there were a lot of requirements for how it functioned during the course of a production. Maybe it had to move multiple locations, but it also had to lock down, and it had to carry a specific amount of weight, but then it also had to change elements that were on it. Thinking about how you constructed that piece, how you thought it through, thinking through the process of those challenges is a really great story that you can tell that's unique to that particular piece and that particular production. So allow those unique moments to permeate through your portfolio. It's going to show that you have a broad skill set and that you have given a lot of thought to that particular production and those pieces within there, and that you're not just talking about the same thing with every show. That starts to feel like you're working in a factory, and that's not what we do. Every show is unique. Every show has unique challenges, and we need to highlight those within our portfolio and our dialogue with the people who are looking at our portfolio. Although professional dress isn't really the norm anymore, it's still important when you're going into a college interview or a job interview that you still think about what you're going to wear and that you dress a little bit more professionally than you would if you were going into work. That means that you think about putting together some pieces that look nice together, that you're wearing clean clothes without maybe some paint stains or rips. Really giving some consideration that you aren't just walking out of the shop and having an interview, that you have put yourself together specifically for this moment. You also have to think about that each position within the theater might have different, not needs, but opportunities. So if you are interested in costuming, you might think about something that is a little bit more fashionable, or that's something you made. That's always really fun when you actually wear something to an interview that's something you constructed. If you're interested in costume construction or costume design, that not only shows that you can do it on stage, but that you can show off something physical that you have there. If you're interested in makeup, you can do something that's a little bit more fun. Obviously, you don't want to go overboard. You still want to look like a human being, but you can have a little bit more fun with how you want to do your makeup or your hair or whatever you want to do, if that's the path that you want to pursue. It's an opportunity for you to show off a skill set in your own personal presentation, not just in your portfolio. If you're someone who's a little bit more technician oriented, you can think about something that's a little bit more casual, but you still want to have something that's maybe a little bit nicer. A nice polo shirt or a button down, or a tunic or a blouse. I actually think jeans are completely acceptable to wear as long as they aren't like run through or stained or anything like that. A nice pair of jeans or khakis, or I don't think you need suits and slacks. I think we're past all of that at this point, unless you're going in for something that's like a high caliber academic interview, and then those rules are a little bit different. But for a college interview or general internship or job interviews, I think we're past the days of suits. Where that kind of line comes into play is if you're in something like management. If you're interested in directing or stage management, something that's a little bit more managerial, something that is suit-like can be really good. It just kind of shows that you have like a sense of power and presence, versus something that's a little bit more casual. But the absolute most important thing about what you wear to an interview is that you feel comfortable in it. If you feel uncomfortable in your clothes, if you're pulling at a jacket, or you're messing with your sleeves, or you feel hot, or if you feel cold, that is going to affect how you present to other people. So try your outfits on, make sure you feel comfortable moving in them, standing in them, presenting your material. Don't just toss something together on the day. Give it some thought and make sure that it is something that not only you feel comfortable in, but also shows off your personality a little bit. We each are unique little flowers out there in the world, and your clothes are your opportunity to show that off. That doesn't mean that you have to go hog wild with what you wear, but just make sure that you are wearing something that feels like you. So the absolute most important thing I think you can do for your presentation is practice it. Plan what you're going to say. You don't have to have it scripted, but have some bullet points and ideas and practice it. A performer will rehearse their audition monologue or their audition song. That is what we are doing. We are auditioning with our portfolios, and by not rehearsing what we're going to present, we're actually doing ourselves a disservice. I know that in the design and tech world, it's not something we do very often. We don't put ourselves out on stage. We don't rehearse monologues like the performers do. But it is still an important skill set that we need to develop and we need to utilize. So figure out what you're going to say, map it out, make yourself some index cards or some bullet points, and practice it. Practice it for your parents. Practice it for your teachers. Practice it for your friends. Practice it for your pets. The more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to be. And the more comfortable you're going to be walking into a room with a person or a bunch of people that you don't know, you're not going to feel like you have to come up with everything on your own. You've done it before. At the first time that you're running through your portfolio spiel is in front of the people that you're presenting it to, you're putting yourself in a hole, and a totally unnecessary hole. There is no reason why you can't practice this. You can do it for yourself and videotape it and give yourself feedback. I don't recommend that personally, but if you don't feel comfortable presenting it to anyone else, it's a really good way to at least have something that you're presenting to. I cannot stress enough how important it is to practice what you're going to say. When I have somebody presenting a portfolio and they have to search for what it is, or they forget to tell me something about a show that they want to, and then they want to go back in the portfolio, it makes it really hard for me as a person looking at a portfolio to connect to the material that's in there. I feel like I'm jumping around. I don't feel like the story is connected. And that's part of what we have to do as portfolio presenters is make it feel like we're telling a cohesive story. And we can't do that if we don't rehearse it. So get your stuff together, get it in front of some people, practice it before you have to present it. You're going to feel so much more comfortable doing that, and you're going to present yourself and your work in a better light than if you try and do it off the cuff. All right. Well, those are my thoughts on presenting your portfolio. As I said at the beginning, I think that it's an underrated part of the process, but I feel like it really is one of the most important. And the more time and energy you can put into the presentation of your portfolio, the more that the material in your portfolio is going to shine. In my next video, I'm actually going to do something a little bit different. I am actually working on updating my own portfolio, and so I'm actually going to do a walkthrough video where I kind of start at the beginning of the process of choosing what paperwork elements, what photos, what research images I want to include in my portfolio, and going through the process of printing those, mounting those, arranging those in the portfolio, and thinking through what I'm going to say about those components within the course of my portfolio. I'm going to take you along for that ride. So it's going to be a little bit different, but hopefully it's going to be kind of a way to tie up all of the components that we have talked about so far, and that you can kind of use that as a guide to how you might approach putting together your own portfolio. So I hope you got some good information out of this. If you have any questions or comments, please put them down in the comments section. And as always, if you have any ideas or suggestions for other videos that I should make, other topics I should talk about, please let me know. I'm always interested in making content that you are interested in, as well as the things that I want to talk about. That's going to do it for now. So thank you all for being here. Have a great day, and we'll see you backstage.